everyone, I'm doing this video today to share some tips about helping you to build calligraphy confidence. So this is something I hear very often from people who've just started learning, or even those who have been practicing for a while. I very often hear that they're struggling to feel confident in their calligraphy, and I completely understand. It can be really difficult at the beginning, when you're learning something new and you want it to work out the first time you do it. And it can be so discouraging when you realize that, it will take time to practice. It's like learning an instrument, isn't it? You can't just do it once. You can't just try doing piano once and then give up. It takes so much practice, so much repetition. So I want to share 3 components that can really help you boost your calligraphy confidence. And after that, we're going to have a little practice session where we're going to try and implement those 3 components. And I hope that this will show in your practice that you'll feel inspired, a bit more motivated, that maybe you'll break through some things, throughout the practice, and you'll realize that you are actually more confident about your calligraphy than you thought you were. So that's the reason I'm doing it. I just really want to help, and I truly believe that by applying these 3 techniques, you'll change the way you see your calligraphy and the way you practice it as well. So if that sounds good, let's dive in. So the component number 1 to help you feel more confident is repetition. And if you think about confidence in general, so what is it that makes us confident in life, in like other areas in our life, is doing it many times, right? Until you start feeling so natural about it that you don't even think about it anymore. See if you can practice drills and alphabet and just individual strokes many times to help you build the muscle memory, which is so important when it comes to learning calligraphy, because you want that natural feeling of not needing to think, to put effort into thinking of applying the pressure when you go down and then going up, lightly. So it's muscle memory. And we want to get to the point where you can look past those things and think about, expressing yourself a bit more throughout your style and focusing on calligraphy flow and all the technicalities like dipping your pen and applying pressure will come with muscle memory. So it's very important that we repeat until it sinks in and starts to be more natural. The component number 2 is decision making. See if you can start making those small stylistic decisions right from the beginning of your practice, because we're all learning from somebody. So you might have your favorite teacher or 2 or 3, and maybe you're using their worksheet and you're copying a particular style, which is fine. So maybe try to notice what it is that you like from that style, what it is that you would like to add to your imaginary kind of stylistic library. So start building your own library of things that you really enjoy seeing and that your eyes find beautiful, okay? And making a decision in general is a very confident action. You have to be confident to be able to decide on something. And once you start deciding those little things and maybe thinking whether your style is a bit more minimalistic, or whether you want to lean into like more of a flourished style, or if you prefer classic looking or bouncy calligraphy style, all of those little decisions will just help you feel a bit more confident because you'll know what your style is standing for. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't ever change it, because let's be honest, our styles are always evolving. I can't, my first style was like completely different to what it is now, but again, it will help you feel confident. You'll see how it all compounds and how you're building your style upon your initial styles. And of course, you can always change things and tweak things and make new decisions, but just being a bit more assertive and a bit more observant of the things that you are enjoying. And then you're kind of telling yourself that it is what you like. So you'll start kind of naturally implementing those things and adding them and weaving them into your style, which again will just help you build your own style, because it does feel very nice to be able to say, my style is this, I love this, I like that. That is confident speaking, right? So see if you can start applying this to your practice. And the component number 3 is knowledge. Now think about it, when you're learning a new language, or when you're learning anything new, right, you want to study the subject inside and out. And same with calligraphy. I'm not saying that you need to study, the historical aspects inside and out, which, are still nice to read. It's nice to read about the history of calligraphy and know all the styles and how it became what it is and how it's maybe influenced modern calligraphy as well. So that's interesting. Give it a read. But what I mean is learning how to study your own practice, okay? So let's say you would take the letter A, you would break it into two shapes. You would do an O shape or C curve shape, and then you'd try doing that many times. See what you can discover. See if your transition points are nice and neat. See if you can break it down even more. Maybe you can just go slower. You can maybe just do one part of the C shape and just notice how the pressure changes, doing it slowly, mindfully, many times. You're studying this shape. And then taking the second part of the letter A, which is a U shape, and again doing it so many times until you get to know it inside and out, until you know how your hand moves and what happens in the process, where your focus goes, and is there anything you can tweak, anything you can do better. So see how detailed it is. It's like we're putting whatever it is that we're practicing under a microscope and just breaking it down and focusing, zooming in on very particular detail. And by doing this, by getting to know something so well, there's no way that you're not going to feel confident about it, because you'll know it inside and out. You'll have practiced it so many times that it will be predictable for you. And this is actually what's helped me so much in my own practice. That predictability has been really helpful, because I can imagine in my sleep how I would connect letters E and F, right? Or, I've done it so many times, I can picture all the connection strokes, all the exit strokes of the letters. And you can get there by doing very focused and zoomed in practice. Okay, so again, just picking one word or one letter, breaking it down, trying it in different styles, adding in little kind of exercises into it where you can just focus on thicker down strokes or lighter up strokes, or focusing in your calligraphy flow or doing it slower, adding a bit of rhythm to your upstrokes and downstrokes. All of these things can really help you study each letter, each stroke, each shape. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so I hope this has inspired you and maybe you're feeling a bit more motivated to pick up your supplies. So let's have a really nice and focused session, a little practice session where we can really implement all these three things that I mentioned. So I'll be using brush pens. You can also use dipper pens for this if you like. So get your tools ready, maybe pick some lovely colours, and let's get started. So see if you can grab your favourite supplies. I'll be using these Pentel brush sign pens in different colours. I'll link them in the description so you can have a look. So grab some paper. We'll also need some guidelines. So perhaps you're using a ruled pad of some sort, that's fine, but you can also just draw some lines. Okay, so I'm using an A5 size paper. It's 300 GSM, it's nice and thick, and I'm just drawing 4 or 5 lines, and these will be great. So it's always nice to letter on a baseline. And we'll start by practicing a baseline style, which is going to be very balanced, quite classic looking. We are not going to stretch our letters below the baseline. So that's going to be something we really focus on, trying to keep them similar height, except all of the ascender and descender letters that stretch up and down. But all of the little letters like A, C and E, we'll try to keep them at a similar height. And we're going to letter the word confidence. So that's going to be the only word we letter today, but we're going to do it in many different kind of variations. So here we go. I'm starting with the letter C-O-N, and then I'm doing the letter F, which obviously stretches up and down. It's quite a long letter. And then I'm just kind of resorting back to trying to keep everything very balanced. I'm also trying to round all of the connection strokes by the letter end and when it goes into another letter. Notice how U-shaped everything is and see if you can try to do the same. So as I'm finishing the letter N, I'm kind of finishing it with a U shape. I'm picking up my pen very often. We're focusing on building each letter out of shapes. Okay, I'm just going to dot my I, letter I, and let's do it again. Let's see if we can work with the spacing a little bit. So I'm going to try and keep this second version a little bit more like tight. I want my letters to be tighter together. I don't really like a big gap between D and E. So again, I've done it once and I'm referring to it. I'm seeing what I can improve, and I don't particularly like a very spaced lettering style. So I'm trying to do it a bit smaller, a bit tighter together, and I'll see what that looks like. And let's try that together. We can also observe together. So there we go. I'm just doing the same thing, but just not stretching my exit stroke of the letter too much to the side so that my connection is a bit tighter. And I definitely love this style a little bit more. And see if you want to notice which one you prefer. So notice how by changing the width of the letter, we managed to get a really kind of different look. So we kept our C shapes a bit more narrow, and we've also kept our letter F and D loops a little bit more narrow too. And you can always experiment with this a little bit more. My changes were actually quite subtle, but maybe yours were even more visible, which is great, and you can really notice the difference. Lovely. So the second thing we're going to do is we're going to try and practice bouncy style. So instead of keeping everything on the baseline like we've done in the first example, we are going to bounce the letters down. So I'll show an example here. So let's say that we are doing just like individual letters. So we are going to stretch the letter N below the baseline and then bounce it back up. You see the difference? It also becomes a little bit more sharp at the bottom. So I'm doing the letter C and letter E, and I'm stretching them down before I stretch them back up in a V shape. Does that make sense? So let's do the letter D as well. So the first part stays as it is, but when we do the second part, we're stretching it down. Notice how low it gets and how sharp and edgy it looks. So there's definitely a bit of a V shape forming at the bottom, and see if you can implement that. So we're going to bounce our letters. It doesn't matter if they are positioned kind of differently at a different height. So I'm starting with the letter C and it goes all the way down, back up. Then I'm keeping the letter O kind of normal, fairly on the baseline. I've bounced the letter N. I'm not doing much with the letter F. Now the letter I is stretching below the line as well. The second part of the letter D. The letter E can maybe stretch just slightly below. The letter N again. The letter C again. So notice how bouncy they look. Now this style is a bit tricky because you kind of have to think about the spacing at the same time. And it can be very difficult. So maybe the first time you do it, it might feel a little bit, hard, or there might be some bigger gaps in between your letters here and there. And we're going to do some focus practice again. So just pick out specific elements. So for me, it was the letter F and I. I just wanted to space it a bit more. So I'm going to pick those things out and I'm just going to practice them a few more times. Okay, so to make your gap between the letters a bit bigger, you can stretch your exit stroke of the letter, which is the last stroke of the letter, a little bit more to the side. So make it longer. Okay. So now, obviously, you can practice this even more. But now that I've observed my previous version, I'm going to do it again. And let's do it together. Let's try this again. And just take into account whatever it was that you picked out. And I'm just focusing on my spacing very, very hard. And I'm keeping all of those exit strokes a little bit more kind of upright, if that makes sense. So they don't stretch to the side. So when I finish the letter, I don't stretch my stroke to the side too much. I kind of bring it back up. a bit more, so it's a bit more upright. And let's see if we can finish the word with a lovely exit stroke as well that stretches all the way kind of up onto the side. And there we go. So this version definitely looks a little bit better. And just for the fun of it, let's try to do something very opposite to this previous version. So we're going to space this word very, very well, just to kind of implement that technique of lengthening your exit stroke of every single letter. Now you see how we're starting to dive in really, really deep with this. And we're doing the same word again and again. And look how many styles we've tried already. And this is what I love to call a very focused practice, okay? So there we go. See if you can do like a very spaced, very well spaced version here. And just observe. And again, make that decision. Which one do you prefer? I definitely prefer this more of a narrow version. So I've drawn a little heart there. And see if you can do the same. Pick the one you love the most. Okay. You might need to pause the video, if you're going slower, that's actually good. And that's fine if you just need to take a pause before we do the third step, which is going to be a detached flourish. We can practice detaching the letter F and D with like a longer stroke, which looks really fun. So we can try 2 different ways. So we can keep the first part of the letter on the baseline, and we can just extend this stroke that kind of goes into a loop, and we can make it a bit longer. So see how I've bounced the first version, so I've bounced the downstroke all the way down and back up, and now the second version is a bit more round. So yeah, the key here is to definitely just start with like a really long horizontal stroke, and we can try a similar thing with the letter F, just really extending it. And now we can implement this. So I will try doing this in a bouncy style and maybe blend in this lovely detached letter F and see what it looks like. So this is the style I prefer, so I'm kind of continuing from there. Maybe you want to try this flourish in a simplistic look, in a more of a baseline style look, which is fine, and we can try that as well. But again, try this and again observe. Notice if you like detached flourishes. How do you feel about them? Does it feel like it's a bit too much for you? Would you like keeping it more simplistic? So I'm going to try keeping it on a baseline here. So all of the letters stay on the baseline, as you can see. And I'm just implementing the same style. I'm detaching the letter F. I'm starting it from the side, going over the letters C, O, and N. And I'm doing the same with the letter D. There isn't actually much room. So see if you can squeeze those flourishes in, especially on the letter D. Keep thinking about your spacing. There's a lot to think about. There we go. So I still prefer the bouncy style. That's just the style that's very close to my heart. But do your own observation and see what it feels like. And maybe the last version we do, we can just kind of learn from these 2 examples. And we can make a decision to whether apply this detached flourish to both letters, F and D, or maybe just do it and apply to one letter, and then see whether you want to do bouncy or baseline, one of those styles, and just do this word once again. We are implementing repetition. We've done a lot of repetition here, which remember is the component number 1. Number 2, we've made lots of stylistic decisions here. Component number 2. And we also put this word under a microscope, and it has given us so many insights. I hope this has inspired you and maybe taught you something new. And I hope this has boosted your confidence, which is the most important thing. I have been lettering for 10 years, and I can't say that I don't have bad calligraphy days, but I think that I've learned to kind of back it all up by all the knowledge, by all the consistent practice I've done, by studying it so well, by knowing what it is that my style kind of represents, that I do feel confident. And even if I'm having a bad day, I know it's just down to either my mood or just things around me that are affecting my skill today. But in general, as a core, I truly believe that I've built that confidence from these three main components, and I really hope they help you too. Now, if you'd like to continue practicing with me, I've put together a really lovely resource bundle, which is only £7 for you. So you'll get 4 sessions, very similar to this. They're like 10 to 15 minute sessions that you can do as a midweek practice, as a lovely evening practice. They all focus on different topics, and you'll also get a bouncy calligraphy workbook, which is a lot of fun. It's spring themed, so hopefully you'll just really enjoy lettering, like spring themed words and such. So this is designed for brush pens in particular. You can do it in dip pens, but I'm demonstrating everything in brush pens. I think you will really enjoy it. I will add a link to this resource bundle in the description, so go and have a look. And thank you so much for watching this, for showing up, for practicing. Like this video, subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this in the future, and I'll see you soon.